I watched Marcus slide the settlement papers across our dining room table, the same table where we'd hosted his mother's birthday dinner last month, where I'd smiled through her passive-aggressive comments about my simple upbringing, where I'd pretended not to notice the way his hand lingered on Jessica's arm when she reached for the wine. Jessica, my best friend since college, the maid of honor at our wedding. The woman currently standing behind my husband with her hand on his shoulder, that practiced look of concern on her face that I'd once believed was genuine. 30 million, Marcus said, tapping the number with his Mont Blanc pen, the one I'd given him for our 5th anniversary. It's more than fair, Claire. More than generous, actually, considering you didn't contribute anything to the business. The business. Apex Technologies. The company I'd helped him build from our studio apartment, surviving on ramen while he coded and I handled everything else. The incorporation papers, the pitch decks, the investor meetings, where I'd smiled and nodded and made him look good. The company that was now valued at $8 billion. $8 billion. Not 300 million, which is what 30 million represented, less than 0.5% of the total value. But they didn't know that I knew. In my first life, the one that ended 3 months from now when I'd discover Marcus had been poisoning me with arsenic, slowly, carefully, the symptoms mimicking the lupus diagnosis he'd convinced me I had, I'd signed these same papers. I'd believed his lies about the company's worth, about the prenup being ironclad, about this being the best I could hope for. I'd believed him when he said he loved me. I'd believed Jessica when she held my hand in the hospital and told me everything would be okay. I died believing them both. But then I woke up 6 months in the past in our bedroom with morning light streaming through the windows and Marcus beside me still asleep. And I remembered everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every symptom that wasn't lupus at all. The poison was in my vitamin supplements. The ones Jessica bought for me from that exclusive wellness company she represented. The ones she insisted I take every morning, watching to make sure I swallowed them. I'd stopped taking them the day I woke up. Within a week, the fatigue began to lift. Within 2, my hands stopped shaking. By 3 weeks, I could think clearly for the first time in months. And I'd started planning. Claire, Marcus's voice pulled me back to the present. Did you hear me? 30 million. You can sign right now and we can both move on with our lives. Jessica squeezed his shoulder. I watched her manicured nails, painted that deep red she knew I hated, dig slightly into his expensive suit jacket. It really is generous, Claire. You should take it while it's on the table. There it was, that edge in her voice, the impatience bleeding through the false sympathy. They wanted this done. They wanted me out. In my first life, I'd asked for time to think. I'd consulted with the lawyer Marcus recommended, his former roommate from Harvard, who I now knew was feeding him information about my case. I'd reviewed the financials they provided, showing Apex struggling, barely profitable, certainly not worth the billions it actually commanded. I'd eventually signed, grateful for the 30 million, grateful to escape what I thought was a loveless marriage, not realizing it was actually a murder plot. 3 months later, I'd been dead. This time, I picked up the pen. Okay, I said simply. Marcus blinked. Okay. I'll sign. I pulled the papers closer, scanning the familiar clauses. The 30 million payment structure, 10 million upfront, 20 million over 5 years. The complete waiver of any future claims to Apex Technologies or its subsidiaries. The non-disclosure agreement. The non-disparagement clause. All of it designed to lock me out of the fortune that was rightfully half mine. Wait, Marcus held up his hand, suspicion flickering across his face. Don't you want to have your lawyer review it? Why? I looked at him with the innocent, trusting expression I'd perfected over 7 years of marriage. You said it's fair, and I trust you, Marcus. You've never lied to me. I watched him swallow, watched the guilt flash across his face before he buried it under that smooth, confident mask he wore so well. Most people would want time to consider. I don't need time. I clicked the pen open. You're right, I didn't contribute to the business. Not really. This is more than generous. Jessica and Marcus exchanged a look. I pretended not to notice, focusing on signing my name on the first page. My hand was steady. In my first life, it had trembled. The poison had already been working its way through my system, deteriorating my nervous system, my cognitive function, my very will to fight. Now I signed with perfect control, Claire Elizabeth Morrison. Claire, Jessica started, that fake concern dripping from her voice. Desai, are you sure? This is a huge decision. Maybe you should sleep on it, talk to someone. I'm sure. I moved to the second page. I just want this to be over. I want to move on, start fresh, you know? Another signature, another page. Marcus was watching me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Good, let him wonder. Let them both wonder why I was making this so easy. The 10 million up front, I said, as if just thinking of it. That goes into my account immediately, right? Once this is filed? Within 3 business days, Marcus's lawyer, David Chen, said from his seat at the end of the table. He'd been quiet until now, observing. The remaining 20 million will be distributed according to the schedule outlined in Appendix C. I nodded, moving to the final page. The big one. The one that said I waived all rights to Apex Technologies, its BATA's current valuation, and any future earnings. I thought about what I knew, what I'd learned in my first life after it was too late. The IPO was scheduled for 3 months from now. Marcus had the date. He'd been working toward it for 2 years, keeping it quiet, keeping me in the dark. The company had been valued privately at $8 billion. After the IPO, based on the market projections I'd found in his hidden files, it would soar to $20 billion within the first year. My half would have been $10 billion. They were buying me out for $30 million, 0.3% of what I deserved, and they thought they were being generous. I signed my name on the final line. Done, I said, sliding the papers back across the table. The relief on their faces was almost comical, almost enough to make me laugh, but I kept my expression neutral, sad, defeated, exactly what they expected to see. Marcus gathered the papers quickly, as if I might change my mind. I'll file these today. The transfer should hit your account by Friday. Thank you, I said softly, for being fair about this. Jessica came around the table and pulled me into a hug. I felt her arms around me, smelled her expensive perfume, and thought about how those same arms would have held me in the hospital bed, watching me die, probably checking her watch to see when she could leave and go celebrate with Marcus. You're doing the right thing, she whispered. Sometimes we have to let go of what's hurting us. You're right, I said into her shoulder. I need to let go of everything that's toxic in my life. She pulled back, smiling. She thought I meant Marcus. She had no idea I meant her. They left together, of course. They'd been staying in Marcus's downtown penthouse, the one he'd told me he used for late nights at the office. I'd been living in our actual home, this sprawling estate in Pacific Palisades that I'd decorated, that I'd made into a home that would soon be his and hers. Let them have it. Let them have it all, for now. I watched their car pull out of the driveway, Marcus's Lamborghini, Jessica in the passenger seat where I used to sit, where I'd never sit again. Then I went to my office, the small room off the kitchen that Marcus always said was cute, with that patronizing tone that suggested I was playing at having a career, and pulled out my phone. I had work to do. First call, Sarah Chen, the sister of David Chen, Marcus's lawyer. Unlike her brother, Sarah had principles. She also had information. Claire, she answered on the second ring. Did you sign? Just now. Perfect, so we're clear. They filed the IPO paperwork last week. The SEC approval should come through in about 60 days. The initial valuation they submitted was $8 billion, but the underwriters at Goldman are already talking about it opening at 12 and climbing from there. And the assets? I've got the full list, the offshore accounts in the Caymans, the shell companies in Delaware, the real estate holdings under various LLCs, everything he's been hiding from you. Sarah had been feeding me information for the past 3 months. Not for money, though I'd paid her well, but because her brother had bragged to her about helping Marcus hide assets from his stupid wife. Sarah, who'd gone through her own divorce, who'd been screwed over by a husband who hid money, had decided to help me. The documentation? I asked. In your secure drive. Everything's time-stamped, verified, and absolutely damning. The moment he files those divorce papers, we can prove he committed fraud during the settlement negotiation. See, here's what Marcus and Jessica didn't know. California is a community property state. Everything acquired during the marriage is split 50-50 regardless of who earned it. But that's only if you know what you're splitting. Marcus had shown me cooked books, fake financial statements, a completely fabricated picture of Apex's worth. In my first life, I'd believed it. This time, I had the truth. "Thank you, Sarah," I said. "Thank you for giving me the chance to screw over my brother. He's had this coming for years." She paused. "Claire, are you sure about your plan? Once this plays out, there's no going back." "I'm sure." I hung up and made my second call. "Claire Morrison," the voice on the other end said warmly. "I was hoping I'd hear from you." "James Martinez, senior partner at Martinez, Blackwell & Associates. The best divorce attorney in Los Angeles. The one who'd represented Jennifer Santos in her divorce from tech billionaire Robert Santos and walked away with $6 billion for her client. I'd approached him 2 months ago in this new life. Told him I was in an unhappy marriage but wasn't sure what to do. He'd advised me to wait, to gather information, to be strategic. I signed the settlement, I told him. The $30 million insult? That's the one. And you have everything we discussed? Everything. Financial records proving the real valuation, evidence of the offshore accounts, documentation of the shell companies, proof that he systematically defrauded me during the settlement negotiations. Then we're ready. I could hear the smile in his voice. Once the IPO goes public and the real numbers are released, we file to set aside the settlement based on fraud. We sue for your full community property share, 50% of the marital assets properly calculated. $4 billion, I said softly. At minimum. Probably more once we add in penalties for the fraud, attorney's fees, and punitive damages for the deception. $4 billion. Versus the $30 million they thought they were paying me. But I wasn't done yet. James, there's one more thing. Go ahead. Jessica Pham, my best friend. I need you to investigate her wellness company. The one she kept pushing me to invest in. The vitamin supplements? Yes, I think you'll find it's a pyramid scheme, and I think you'll find Marcus is one of the primary investors. In my first life, I discovered too late that the wellness company was Jessica's front for laundering Marcus's hidden money. The vitamins were overpriced garbage, but they provided a perfect way to move cash around. And as an added bonus, they gave Jessica access to my vitamin supply, the ones she'd laced with poison. I had no proof of the poisoning. Not yet. The symptoms could have been anything, and by the time I died in my first life, it was too late for an autopsy to reveal anything useful. The arsenic had metabolized, the damage was done, and everyone believed I'd succumbed to complications from lupus. But I had time now, and I was very, very patient. I'll have my investigator look into it, James said. If there's fraud there, we'll find it. Thank you. I'll be in touch. I ended the call and sat back in my chair looking around my office. This room that Marcus dismissed. This space where I'd actually been running my own business for the past 3 years. A consulting firm that helped small tech companies with their operations and strategy. It wasn't Apex Technologies. It wasn't billions of dollars. But it was mine. And Marcus had no idea how much it was worth. Because while he'd been hiding his assets from me, I'd been hiding mine from him. Not out of malice, I'd actually thought we were a team. I'd kept my business separate because I wanted something that was just mine. Something I'd built without his shadow. That business was now worth $70 million. I'd gotten an offer last month from a larger firm wanting to acquire it. I'd turned them down, but I'd kept the paperwork. Marcus didn't know about it because I'd structured everything through a trust I'd set up before we married. The prenup protected his pre-marital assets. Coincidentally, it also protected mine. $70 million, plus the $10 million from the settlement, plus what I'd saved over the years. I'd have enough to live comfortably while I waited for the real prize. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Hey babe, just checking on you. That was so hard. Want to come over tonight? Wine and ice cream? I'm here for you. I stared at that heart emoji. In my first life, I'd have jumped at this. I'd have gone to her apartment, cried on her shoulder, drunk the wine she offered, eaten the ice cream she'd present, and the whole time she'd have been waiting for me to take my vitamins. Thanks, but I think I need to be alone tonight. Processing everything. Of course, take all the time you need. I love you. I deleted the text thread and blocked her number. Then I went to the kitchen and found the vitamin bottle she'd given me last week. The new supply. Extra strength, she'd said. Since you've been so tired lately. I'd been flushing them down the toilet one by one right after she left each morning, but I'd kept the bottle. I called Sarah back. I need one more favor, I said. I need you to get these vitamins tested, full chemical analysis. You think they're contaminated? I think they're poison. There was a long pause. Claire, I know how it sounds, but I have reason to believe Jessica has been poisoning me. I just need proof. Okay, Sarah said slowly. Okay, I'll connect you with a lab I trust. One that does toxicology work for criminal cases. They'll be thorough, and they'll document everything properly. Thank you. I hung up and looked at the bottle in my hand. Such a small thing. Such an innocent-looking thing. White capsules in a clean bottle with a cheerful label about holistic wellness and natural energy. Natural arsenic, more likely. I'd have proof soon enough. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange sort of calm. Marcus moved into the penthouse officially. I stayed in the house, packing slowly, sorting through 7 years of marriage. The money hit my account on Friday, exactly as promised. $10 million. I transferred it immediately to my private accounts, the ones Marcus didn't know about, added it to my other money. Watched my net worth climb to $80 million. Pocket change compared to what was coming. Jessica called me every day. I let it go to voicemail. She texted constantly. I replied occasionally, brief messages. Still processing. Need time. Talk soon. She started getting anxious. I could feel it in her messages. Claire, I'm worried about you. Can I come over? Are you eating? Taking your vitamins? Please call me. I miss you. She needed me to take those vitamins. She needed the poison to keep working. Without it, I'd get stronger. I'd start thinking clearly. I might start asking questions. She was panicking. Good. The lab results came back on day 12. Sarah called me personally. Claire, you were right. Arsenic trioxide, chronic exposure doses. This is attempted murder. My hands were shaking as I held the phone. Shaking from rage, not from poison. Can we prove Jessica gave them to me? Do you have any evidence of her providing these vitamins? Texts, emails, receipts? All of it. She documented everything. She was so proud of her wellness company, she sent me invoices, tracking information, whole emails about the benefits. Then yes, we can prove it. Claire, we need to go to the police. Not yet. What? I need more time. I need them to feel safe first. I need them to think they've won. Claire, trust me, please. She was quiet for a long moment. How much time? 2 months, maybe less. Until after the IPO. And if Jessica tries something else in the meantime? She won't. She thinks I'm defeated. She thinks I'm just a sad, dumped wife who's going to fade away quietly. And I'm going to let her keep thinking that. Sarah sighed. You're either brilliant or crazy. Maybe both. The IPO was scheduled for 67 days after I signed the settlement. Marcus and Jessica were not subtle about their excitement. I watched their Instagram stories. I'd created a fake account, something generic and untraceable. They were traveling, St. Bart's, Dubai, Tokyo, living their best life on Marcus's about-to-explode fortune. Jessica posted photos of them on a yacht, In her caption, she talked about new beginnings and finding happiness and loving yourself first. The comments were full of support from people who didn't know she was fucking her best friend's husband, who didn't know she'd been poisoning that best friend. I screenshotted everything. On day 45, Marcus called me. "Claire, it's Marcus." "I know," I said. "It's your number." "Right, I wanted to check in, see how you're doing." This was new. In my first life, he'd never called, never checked in. He'd been too busy celebrating his freedom. "I'm fine," I said carefully. "Why?" "The house. I know you've been packing, but I thought, if you need more time, that's okay." Something was off. Marcus didn't do generous, not unless it served him. "That's kind of you," I said slowly. "But I'm almost done." "Where are you going to move?" "I found a place in Venice. Small, but it's nice." A lie. I'd bought a penthouse in Beverly Hills with cash through an LLC. But he didn't need to know that. "Venice is great," he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. Venice was where struggling artists lived, where you went when you couldn't afford the really nice areas. He was happy I'd be somewhere beneath him. "Was there something else then?" I asked. No, I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm okay, Marcus. You can stop feeling guilty now." He laughed, awkward and forced. It's fine. We both deserve to be happy. I hope you find what you're looking for." I hung up before he could respond. Then I called Sarah. "Why is Marcus checking up on me?" "I can find out. Give me an hour." She called back in 45 minutes. "His lawyers are nervous. Apparently, there's been some chatter in the tech community about Apex's valuation. People asking questions about how he kept it so quiet. His legal team wanted to make sure you weren't talking to anyone, weren't going to make waves before the IPO. He thinks I might have figured it out? He's worried you might figure it out once it goes public. They're trying to gauge your emotional state. If you're depressed and withdrawn, you're not a threat. If you're angry and hiring lawyers, you're a problem. Tell them I'm sad and pathetic. From what David's told me, that's exactly the impression you gave. Marcus thinks you're a broken little thing who's grateful for the crumbs he threw you." Perfect. On day 60, Apex Technologies filed their S-1 with the SEC. The document was public. Anyone could read it. The company valuation was listed at $10.2 billion. My phone started ringing immediately. Friends, family, people who'd heard I'd divorced. Marcus, wondering if I'd seen the news. I didn't answer. Instead, I called James Martinez. "Did you see?" he asked. "I saw. Your settlement was $30 million. Based on this S1, your community property share would be $5 billion. $5 billion, not 4. They'd lowballed even more than I'd calculated." "How soon can we file?" I asked. "I'm writing the motion now. We file the day after the IPO. We'll request an immediate freeze on Marcus's assets pending the fraud investigation. We'll file for an emergency hearing, and we'll release a statement to the press." "The press?" "Claire, this is going to be big news. Tech billionaire defrauds wife in divorce settlement, undervaluing company by 99.7%. This is going to be everywhere." "Good," I said. "I want it to be everywhere, because that was the other thing Marcus and Jessica didn't know about me. I'd spent the last 2 months building relationships with every major tech journalist in Los Angeles, not as Marcus's ex-wife. As a source for a different story I was feeding them, about a wellness company that was actually a pyramid scheme, preying on vulnerable women. When the Apex story broke, they'd be primed to dig deeper, and they'd find Jessica's company, and they'd find Marcus's investment in it, and then I'd give them the poisoning evidence. I wanted them destroyed, completely and utterly destroyed. Not just broke, not just humiliated, I wanted them in prison. The IPO was set for a Tuesday morning. I woke up early, made coffee, and watched the market open on my laptop. Apex Technologies debuted at $45 per share. The S1 had estimated $30. They'd underestimated the market's appetite. By noon, it was at 67s. By close, it was at $89. The company valuation was now at $18 billion. My share, $9 billion. They'd paid me $30 million. I'd accepted it with a smile. That night, I poured myself a glass of very expensive wine, a 1990 Chateau Margaux that I'd been saving for a special occasion, and made a toast to my empty living room. To rebirth, I said. And revenge? The next morning, James filed our motion to set aside divorce settlement based on fraud and material misrepresentation. The filing was 247 pages long. It included the financial statements Marcus had provided during the divorce, showing Apex valued at approximately $300 million. The actual S1 filing, showing the real valuation of over $10 billion. Evidence of offshore accounts and hidden assets totaling another $400 million. Documentation of shell companies used to hide money. Expert testimony from 3 forensic accountants. A demand for $9 billion in community property, plus $2 billion in punitive damages for the fraud, plus attorney's fees, plus interest. Total claim, approximately $11 billion. We filed at 8:47 a.m. By 9:15, my phone started exploding. Marcus called 17 times. I didn't answer. Jessica called 32 times. I blocked her. By 10 a.m., the story hit TechCrunch. Apex Technologies founder sued by ex-wife for $11 billion, accused of massive fraud in divorce settlement. By 11 a.m., it was on CNBC. By noon, it was trending on Twitter. By 2 p.m., Marcus's lawyer called James directly, begging for a meeting. Tell him no, I said when James called me. Tell him we'll see him in court. Claire, they want to settle. They're offering $2 billion right now to make this go away. No. $2 billion is a lot of money. $9 billion is more. And I want them to suffer. Okay, James said. But I need to advise you that trials are risky. A judge might not. I'll take the risk. That afternoon, I got an email from an account I didn't recognize. The subject line, please. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. Claire, I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be, but please, can we talk? This is destroying everything. The IPO is in free fall. The investors are panicking. And if you push this, you won't just hurt me. You'll hurt thousands of employees who have stock options. People who have nothing to do with our personal issues. I made mistakes. I know that, but I'm begging you, as someone you once loved, please reconsider. Please talk to me. Marcus. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to James with a note. Add this to the evidence file. Shows consciousness of guilt. Then I replied to Marcus. Marcus, you're right that you made mistakes. You lied, you cheated, you stole from me, and you thought I was too stupid to notice. You're wrong that this is about our personal issues. This is about fraud. This is about you systematically deceiving me about the value of marital assets in order to cheat me out of billions of dollars. You should have played fair. You didn't. Now you get to face the consequences. P.S. You might want to ask Jessica about those vitamins she's been selling. Claire. I hit send and closed my laptop. Then I called Detective Lisa Park, LAPD. Sarah had connected me with her 2 weeks ago. I'd given her all the evidence about the poisoning. The vitamin samples, the lab results, the paper trail of Jessica providing them to me, my medical records showing symptoms consistent with arsenic poisoning that mysteriously cleared up when I stopped taking the vitamins. Detective Park, she answered. It's Claire Morrison. Have you had a chance to review everything? I have. Ms. Morrison, this is a very strong case. I'm going to need to bring Ms. Pham in for questioning. Can you wait until tomorrow? Why? Because there's a story about to break about her wellness company. And I want her to know that everything's falling apart before you arrest her. There was a pause. Ms. Morrison, I'm not sure. Please. She tried to kill me. She almost succeeded. I just want her to feel the panic I felt just for one day. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll give you 24 hours. But after that, we're moving forward. Thank you. I hung up and sent an email to Rachel Kim, my favorite tech journalist. Rachel, remember that wellness company story I've been helping you with? The one about the pyramid scheme? The company is Pure Life Wellness, run by Jessica Pham. You'll find that one of the primary investors is Marcus Morrison of Apex Technologies. Yes, the same Marcus Morrison currently being sued for divorce fraud. You'll also find that the supplements they're selling are manufactured in an unlicensed facility in Chongqing, China, that the health claims are completely fabricated, and that the entire company structure is designed to extract money from vulnerable women while providing nothing of value. And one more thing. I have evidence that the supplements may be contaminated. Lab results attached. This is on the record. You can use my name. Claire Morrison. I attached the lab reports showing the arsenic, along with all the financial documents Sarah had compiled about Jessica's company. Rachel called me within 10 minutes. Claire, this is insane. Are you saying your ex-husband's girlfriend tried to poison you with arsenic? I'm saying I have evidence that vitamins she provided to me contained arsenic. I've reported it to the police. The rest is up to the investigation. Holy shit. Yeah. Can I publish this? Tomorrow morning. I want the divorce story to breathe for a day first. You're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. I've had time to think about my strategy. She laughed. I'm going to need an exclusive interview when this is all over. You'll get it. That night, I finally went to my new penthouse in Beverly Hills. The one I'd bought with cash. The one with bulletproof windows and a 24-hour security team and a view of the entire city. I stood on the balcony looking out at Los Angeles and thought about my first life. How small I'd felt, how defeated, how I'd signed those papers believing I was getting a generous settlement, believing Marcus had loved me once, believing I was walking away with dignity. How I'd died 3 months later, weak and confused, while Jessica held my hand and Marcus looked sad at my funeral, and everyone thought it was so tragic that I'd succumbed to lupus so young. I thought about the moment I'd woken up in the past, given a second chance I didn't understand and couldn't explain. The terror of realizing what was coming, the fury of knowing how badly I'd been betrayed, and the cold, careful planning that followed. I'd spent 6 months being strategic, being patient, being 3 steps ahead. Now, finally, I was watching it all unfold. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You bitch. You absolute bitch. You're going to regret this. Jessica. She must have gotten a new number after I blocked her. I smiled and typed back, no, Jessica. You're going to regret this. See you soon. Rachel's story went live at 6 o'clock a.m. the next morning. It's Pure Life Wellness inside the toxic pyramid scheme, allegedly connected to Apex Technologies founder. The article was thorough. Rachel had done her homework. She'd interviewed victims of Jessica's scheme, women who'd lost thousands of dollars buying inventory they couldn't sell, women who'd been pressured into recruiting their friends and family, women who'd been promised financial freedom and gotten debt instead. She'd gotten expert testimony from toxicologists about the arsenic contamination. She'd traced the money flow from Marcus to Jessica's company, millions of dollars invested through shell corporations, the same ones he'd used to hide assets from me. And she'd connected the dots between the divorce fraud and the wellness scheme, painting a picture of 2 people who'd made a business out of deceiving the people who trusted them. By 8 o'clock a.m., Jessica's company website had crashed from traffic. By 9 o'clock a.m., she'd posted on Instagram a long rambling message about false accusations and jealous ex-friends, and standing in her truth. The comments were brutal. By 10 a.m., Detective Park called me. We're bringing her in now. I wanted to give you a heads up. Thank you. Ms. Morrison, I need to ask, how did you know? About the poisoning? I'd prepared for this question. The symptoms stopped when I stopped taking her vitamins. It made me suspicious. I had them tested. Not the full truth, but not a lie either. Well, you may have saved your own life. If you'd kept taking them, I know. I hung up and turned on the news. They were covering it all, the divorce fraud, the wellness scam, the poisoning allegations. Marcus's face was plastered across every channel, looking haggard and angry. Apex's stock had dropped 40% in 2 days. My phone rang. James, they want to settle, he said. $8 billion, immediately. No. Claire, $9 billion, that's my half, plus the $2 billion in punitive damages, plus attorney's fees, plus interest, plus a public apology, plus a full audit of every financial dealing Marcus has ever done. I want every single hidden account exposed, every shell company dissolved, every lie revealed. They'll never agree to that. Then we go to trial, and I'm very confident about our chances. What if we lose? We won't. I have evidence of systematic fraud. I have expert witnesses. I have his own emails admitting he hid assets. And now I have proof that he invested in a criminal enterprise that tried to kill me. The poisoning case is separate, but the investment is connected. And it shows a pattern of deception and willingness to harm me for financial gain. A jury's going to love that. James was quiet for a moment. You've really thought this through. I've had time. Okay, I'll tell them it's $11 billion or nothing. Good. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks later. In that time, several things happened. First, Jessica was formally charged with attempted murder. The DA had reviewed all the evidence, the lab results, the paper trail, my medical records, the pattern of her insisting I take the vitamins, and determined they had a strong case. She was arrested at her apartment. The footage of her being walked out in handcuffs, crying and screaming about her innocence went viral. Second, Pure Life Wellness collapsed. The state attorney general opened an investigation into the pyramid scheme structure. Hundreds of victims came forward. Jessica's assets were frozen pending the criminal case. Third, more allegations emerged about Marcus. Former employees of Apex came forward with stories of wage theft, sexual harassment, hostile work environment. The SEC opened an investigation into whether he'd committed securities fraud in the IPO process by hiding his personal legal troubles. Apex's stock continued to plummet. It was now trading at $23 per share, half of its opening price. Marcus was losing everything, and I was just getting started. The hearing was held in Los Angeles Superior Court downtown. I wore a simple black suit, professional, serious, but not trying too hard. I wanted to look like what I was, a wronged woman seeking justice. Marcus wore an expensive suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He looked tired, older. The stress was eating at him. Good. His legal team was 7 people. Mine was 3, James and 2 associates. We didn't need more. We had the truth. Judge Catherine Roberts presided. She was in her 60s, stern, with a reputation for not tolerating bullshit. She'd read the filings, all 247 pages. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if there's sufficient evidence of fraud to set aside the divorce settlement, she began. Mr. Martinez, you may present your argument. James stood. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. During divorce proceedings, Mr. Morrison presented financial statements showing his company, Apex Technologies, was worth approximately $300 million. Based on these representations, my client agreed to a settlement of $30 million, approximately 10% of what she was told the company was worth. Less than 2 months later, Mr. Morrison's company went public with a valuation of over $10 billion, more than 30 times what he'd claimed. He projected the documents on the screen, the fake financial statements, the real S1 filing. The contrast was stark. Mr. Morrison systematically deceived my client about the value of marital assets in order to defraud her of billions of dollars. This isn't a disagreement about valuation. This is fraud, and we can prove it. Marcus's lead attorney, Gerald Whitmore, stood. He was one of the most expensive lawyers in California, famous for defending tech executives. Your Honor, my client disputes these allegations entirely. The valuation of a private company is inherently uncertain. Mr. Morrison provided his best good faith estimate of Apex's worth at the time of the divorce. The fact that the market assigned a different value months later doesn't constitute fraud. It's simply the nature of volatile tech stocks. Your Honor, James interjected, we have evidence that Mr. Morrison knew the true value. We have internal documents from Apex showing the pre-IPO valuation. We have communications with investment banks. We have emails where Mr. Morrison specifically discussed hiding the company's true worth from his wife. That's taken out of context, Whitmore started. Let me see the emails, Judge Roberts said. James's associate handed up a folder. The judge read in silence for several minutes. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. Mr. Whitmore, your client wrote, and I quote, Claire has no idea what Apex is really worth. Let's keep it that way. The settlement offer should be based on the doctored financials. She looked up. Would you like to explain how that's taken out of context? Whitmore looked like he wanted to disappear. Your Honor, I'd need to review the full email chain to provide proper context. I've read the full chain. It doesn't get better for your client. She set down the papers. Is there any evidence that the company valuation changed significantly between the settlement date and the IPO? Any major business development that would account for a 30x increase in value? The market conditions? Answer the question, counselor. Did the business fundamentally change? No, Your Honor. Then it appears Mr. Morrison lied to his wife about the value of marital assets in order to pay her a fraction of what she was owed. Judge Roberts looked at me for the first time. Ms. Morrison, you signed this settlement voluntarily, correct? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. Based on the financial information provided by your husband? Yes, Your Honor. I trusted him. I believed we were being honest with each other about the company's value. And you had no independent knowledge of the true valuation? Not at the time, no. I wasn't involved in the IPO process. Marcus kept it completely separate from me. The judge nodded. Mr. Whitmore, I'm going to ask you directly, do you have any evidence that Ms. Morrison knew or should have known the true value of Apex Technologies at the time she signed the settlement? She could have hired her own experts. That's not what I asked. Do you have evidence she knew? No, Your Honor. Then she relied on her husband's representations, which were fraudulent. Judge Roberts closed the file. I'm granting the motion. The settlement is set aside based on fraud. This case will proceed to determine the proper distribution of marital assets. Whitmore stood quickly. Your Honor, we'd like to request a continuance. Denied. We're going to resolve this quickly, Mr. Whitmore. Your client committed fraud. The only question now is how much he's going to pay. She looked at her calendar. Full hearing in 30 days. Both parties should come prepared to settle because if this goes to trial, I'm going to be very unsympathetic to Mr. Morrison's position. She banged her gavel. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. I walked out of the courtroom with my head high. Outside, there was a crowd of reporters, cameras, microphones. I'd prepared for this. Ms. Morrison, how do you feel about the judge's ruling? I feel vindicated. I trusted my husband, and he betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. I'm grateful the court saw through his deception. What do you want people to know? That you should never let someone make you feel small, that you should never accept less than you deserve, and that fraud has consequences no matter how rich or powerful you are. Do you have a message for Marcus Morrison? I looked directly at the camera. You should have played fair, Marcus. You had everything. You could have split it honestly and we both would have been fine, but you got greedy. You thought I was too stupid to fight back. You were wrong. The clip went viral within an hour. By evening, #Team Claire was trending on Twitter. By the next morning, I had 3 million new followers on Instagram. By the end of the week, I'd been offered a book deal worth 7 figures, a Netflix documentary deal, and invitations to speak at conferences about empowerment and justice. I accepted all of them. Marcus's lawyers called James 23 times in those 30 days, each time with a new settlement offer. 3 billion, 5 billion, 7 billion, 10 billion. I rejected them all. I want my day in court, I told James. I want the full truth on the record. Claire, 10 billion is more than you'd get from a judgment. It's not about the money anymore. It's about the principle. The trial lasted 3 days. We presented evidence of the fraud, emails, financial documents, expert testimony. It was overwhelming. Marcus's lawyers tried to argue that I was vindictive, that I was trying to destroy him out of spite, that I should be grateful for the 30 million. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 4 hours. The verdict: Marcus Morrison committed fraud in the divorce settlement. Claire Morrison is entitled to 50% of all marital assets, properly calculated, plus punitive damages. The judge awarded me $9.2 billion, my half of the marital estate based on Apex's true value, plus $3 billion in punitive damages, plus attorney's fees, plus interest. Total, $12.4 billion, the largest divorce settlement in American history. Marcus stood when the verdict was read. His face was white. His hands were shaking. He looked at me across the courtroom, and for just a moment, I saw it. The realization that he'd underestimated me, that the quiet wife he'd dismissed was the one who'd destroyed him. I smiled. Outside the courthouse, the reporters were waiting. "Ms. Morrison, you just won $12 billion. How does it feel?" "It feels like justice," I said simply. "What will you do with the money?" "First, I'm going to pay my lawyers. They did incredible work." James grinned beside me. "Then I'm going to invest in women-owned businesses. I'm going to fund legal aid for other women going through divorces who can't afford top lawyers. I'm going to start a foundation dedicated to helping victims of financial fraud and domestic abuse." "Do you have anything to say to Marcus Morrison?" I paused, looking directly at the camera. "I told you that you should have played fair. You didn't listen. Now you're bankrupt, under investigation by the SEC, and you've lost everything that mattered." "I hope it was worth it." "And Jessica Pham?" "Jessica's trial for attempted murder starts next month. I'll be there to testify. I hope she gets everything she deserves." Jessica's trial was brutal. The prosecution presented the evidence. The arsenic-laced vitamins, my medical records showing chronic poisoning symptoms that cleared up when I stopped taking them, the paper trail of Jessica providing the vitamins, her financial connection to Marcus, the motive. Jessica's defense was that she had no idea the vitamins were contaminated, that it must have been the manufacturer, that she'd never meant to hurt me. But then the prosecution brought out the emails between Jessica and Marcus discussing my declining health, emails where Jessica updated him on whether I'd taken my vitamins, emails where they discussed what would happen to the marital assets when I died. They'd been planning it, together. The jury convicted her in 2 hours, attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, 40 years to life. At the sentencing, the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. I stood. "Jessica was my best friend," I said. "I loved her, I trusted her, and she tried to kill me because she wanted my husband and his money. She fed me poison and held my hand while I died. The only reason I'm alive is because I got lucky." I paused, looking at her. She was crying, but I felt nothing. "I hope you spend the rest of your life thinking about how you traded friendship for money. And I hope you realize it was all for nothing. Because you'll never touch a penny of Marcus's fortune, and you'll never be free again." She was led away, still crying. I walked out of the courthouse and went home. Home to my penthouse in Beverly Hills. Home to my life that I'd rebuilt from nothing. 6 months after the trial, I was sitting on my balcony drinking morning coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" "Claire, it's Marcus." I hadn't heard his voice in months. It sounded different, smaller. "What do you want?" I wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything." Little late for that. "I know, I needed you to know. I was wrong. About all of it. I waited. I didn't owe him anything, certainly not absolution. I lost everything," he said quietly. "Apex is gone. The SEC investigation resulted in criminal charges. I'm probably going to prison. All my assets are frozen. I'm living in a studio apartment in Van Nuys. I can't even afford a lawyer anymore." "I know," I said. "I've been following your case." "Of course you have." He laughed, bitter. "You were always smarter than me." "I just didn't want to see it." "No, you wanted me to be smaller than you. There's a difference." Silence. "Why did you do it?" I asked. You had everything. Why did you need to screw me over too? Because I could, he said finally. Because you trusted me, and that made it easy. Because I thought you'd never find out, and even if you did, you'd never fight back. I thought you loved me enough to let it go. I did love you, I said. That's why it hurt so much when I found out the truth. And now? Now I don't feel anything when I think about you. You're just a cautionary tale. Another pause. I deserve that. Yes, you do. Claire, can I ask you something? Go ahead. How did you know? How did you figure it all out so quickly? The real valuation, the hidden assets, the poisoning. It was like you knew exactly what we were doing before we did it. I smiled, looking out at the city. At my city now. Let's just say I got a second chance, I said. And I didn't waste it. What does that mean? It means you should have been honest with me from the start, because you never know who's going to get the last laugh. I hung up. That night, I hosted a party at my penthouse. Not a big party, just a few people. Sarah Chen, who'd helped me gather the evidence. Rachel Kim, who'd broken the story. James Martinez, who'd fought for me in court. A few other women I'd met through my foundation. Women who'd survived their own divorces and betrayals. We toasted to second chances, to fighting back, to refusing to be small. To Claire, Sarah said, raising her glass. Who taught us that revenge is a dish best served with a $12 billion judgment? Everyone laughed. I looked around at these women, these strong, brilliant, fierce women who'd survived their own hells and come out the other side. Not revenge, I said. Justice, there's a difference. What's the difference? One of them asked. I thought about it. About Marcus, bankrupt and facing prison. About Jessica, locked away for 40 years. About Apex Technologies, now under new management with strict ethical guidelines and generous employee compensation packages. About the billions of dollars I was using to help other women escape abusive marriages, fund domestic violence shelters, provide free legal services. About the life I'd built, bigger and brighter than anything I'd had before. Revenge is about hurting someone because they hurt you, I said. Justice is about making sure they can't hurt anyone else. We drank to that. Later, after everyone had gone home, I stood on my balcony again, looking at the city lights. I thought about my first life, the one where I'd signed those papers gratefully, where I'd taken the vitamins faithfully, where I'd died confused and alone. I thought about waking up 6 months in the past, given a chance I still didn't fully understand. I thought about the choices I'd made, the patience I'd shown, the long game I'd played. And I thought about the future, my foundation growing, my investments thriving, my voice reaching more and more women who needed to hear that they didn't have to accept less than they deserved. I'd been given a second chance at life, and I'd made it count. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You destroyed my brother. I hope you're happy. David Chen, Marcus's lawyer and Sarah's brother, the one who'd helped Marcus hide assets, who'd thought he was so clever. I typed back, your brother destroyed himself. I just made sure everyone saw it. I blocked the number and deleted the message. Then I poured myself another glass of wine, something expensive that I could actually afford now, and made a toast to my empty balcony. To rebirth, I said, just like I had the night before the IPO, and to never accepting less than I deserve. The city glittered below me. Somewhere out there, Marcus was in his studio apartment, probably drinking cheap vodka and wondering how it all went wrong. Somewhere out there, Jessica was in a cell, probably still insisting she was innocent. And somewhere out there, other women were in the same position I'd been in 6 months ago, being lied to, cheated, underestimated, poisoned by people they trusted. But I was going to change that, one woman at a time, one lawsuit at a time, one victory at a time, because I'd learned the most important lesson: never accept the settlement offer immediately. Unless, of course, you know it's only 10% of what you deserve, and you have a plan to get the other 90%, and then some. I smiled, looking out at my city, my future, my life. It was going to be a very good life indeed.